Hey everyone, my name is Colin Harvey, and welcome to Future Dreams podcast interviews. Today's guest is such an honor to have because she is the voice of Anne Marie Cunningham from Silent Hill Downpour, and that is the amazing Kristin Price. Welcome, Kristin.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. It's a real pleasure to be here and talk to everybody.
It's a real pleasure to have you too. I'm just so fortunate to have you because you're in one of my favorite all-time franchises, and I just had to invite someone, not because I'm a Silent Hill fan, but because we're getting so many new Silent Hill games and projects since at least 10 years since Downpour, which I am so excited for.
Yeah, so what do you want to know?
Well, to start out, I would like to ask and learn more about you. So, my first question is, how did you get into the acting industry, like voice acting and acting in general?
So I'm one of those people who knew when I was a tiny kid that I wanted to perform. I was doing children's choirs and youth performances when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. I started taking dance classes at a young age. And I remember actually the moment when I knew this is what I'm doing for my career. When I was in 7th grade, I don't know how that matches up for England, but I was about 12. I saw a high school production of Camelot, the musical. And I don't know what it was. It was just, I saw a bunch of high school students doing Camelot, and I said, that is what I am doing with my life. And so I really went full tilt for the singing lessons, and I'd already been taking some dance classes, and decided that, yeah, I'm going to make this happen. So I didn't actually go to a conservatory program for college. I know a lot of people end up going to like a major acting conservatory. I decided I wanted to know more about the world than just acting. And I'm so glad I did that, because I feel like as actors, the more you know about little bits and pieces of everything, the more you can bring to your characters and the more you bring to the table in a creative sense. But I actually did a year in college at a theater program in London, which was amazing. I love London so much. And then after that, I moved back home. I was living in California near San Francisco at the time. And I just auditioned for everything. I did tons of musical theater. I did Shakespeare. I was just on stage as much as I possibly could be. And then after I earned my Actors Equity card, which is, the American equivalent of British Equity, I moved to New York almost 20 years ago now. Wow. And started auditioning for theater here in New York. And unfortunately, it became clear pretty quickly that I wasn't making a lot of headway in the New York theater scene. So I had a choice. I could either move back to San Francisco, or I could figure out where I fit into the industry. And I started taking classes in other areas, and one of those areas was voiceover. And it ironically became instantly a comfy home. I say ironically because, as you could tell from what I just said, my background up until then had been stage, musical theater, Shakespeare, big stuff. And then suddenly here I was bringing it down to just me and the microphone in a booth, and finding an entirely new way to use my acting skills, an entirely new way to use my voice. And it was just where I needed to be. So for the last, 18 years, that has been my primary focus. And I'm in the booth every day. And it's been a wonderful journey to finding where I am in the industry. Is it where I initially thought I was going to be when I was 12 and saw that production of Camelot? Oh, not at all. I would actually think that a vast majority of actors do not end up exactly where in the industry they initially envisioned, but I'm where I should be, and I'm very happy with it. So that is how I got here.
Extraordinary. You've had such a great journey, Kristin. That from what you started and then still going on, that is amazing. I'm overwhelmed.
Oh, hang on. Sorry, we're having a little interference here. Do you want to come say hi?
I didn't realize
sorry
that you were doing that, but
I'm doing an interview. I'm sorry, I can't watch right now. This is my son Alec. Just very brief cameo appearance.
Hi, Alec. Welcome to you. Bless him.
He wanted to show me a Minecraft video.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, he's very into Minecraft and computer programming and all sorts of things. So that's been another fun journey is being a parent.
One of the greatest things to be, really, to be a mom. It's one of the best things to be, in my opinion.
It's a lot of fun, and it's also there's a lot of acting involved in parenting, because a lot of parents that you see seeming like they have it all together and they have it all figured out, no, it's all improv. It's all kind of like yes and all the time, and rolling with it and figuring out, okay, that just happened. How do we deal with that? So anyway. Yes, acting is everywhere.
Is there anything that, if you go back in time, would you ever consider doing something else but acting?
It's always been my drive. That's always been my drive. But I did, my minor in college was medieval art history. So I kind of always thought that if acting didn't work out, maybe I would research medieval stuff.
Interesting. You've even been,
and that's, like I said, it's a whole other skill set. The dubbing is another thing that tends to be done in a professional studio rather than home, because then they can have the screens set up, they can have the click track counting you in. It's a lot easier from a technical standpoint to get the mechanics of dubbing. But yeah, it almost helps to have a music background for that, because if you can get into the rhythm of the speech and you can kind of feel the rhythm of the character in the original language, then that gives you a lot of information about the pacing you need and the cadence you need to fit that whole line that was animated to a different language into the mouth flap and make it believable. So many different skills to pull from. But yeah, my understanding is that a music background is very helpful for that.
I agree. And before we talk about Silent Hill, I've got one more question. Since COVID, what has been a major difference doing voiceover work at home and in 2020 and onwards compared to doing voiceover work in the studio before the pandemic?
I miss my friends, so auditions used to be where you'd run into people and where you'd make friends, get to know casting directors. I'd be running around the city, going to different locations every day, crossing my fingers that the subway would work that day and I'd get to everything on time. But then you'd get there and you're in a waiting room and you put your name on the sign-in sheet and you take the script and you look at it for a moment. Not too much, because you don't want to over-rehearse, because you want it to be very loose and spontaneous. And then you sit there and chat with the other people in the waiting room. And that's your social interaction for the day. And now we are literally in a small padded room talking to ourselves. And so for those of us who are a little more on the social end of things, I miss my friends. That's the big thing. Now, that's the downside. The upside is I can do way more auditions in a day because I'm not doing all the commuting around between different studio locations. I'm just sitting in there and I can do 10 auditions in an hour. rather than sign in, wait, do the audition, take the subway to the next one, sign in, wait, do the audition. So there are pluses and minuses, but overall, I always feel like there's a little bit more energy. The energy is very different when you're in person and there's a casting director on the other side of the glass, or clients if you're in a recording session. Everything's a little more interactive rather than waiting for the slight Zoom delay and all that before you get the next piece of direction, and waiting for people to unmute. And, because sometimes you finish a take now. I was in a session on Thursday, and this happened a couple of times where, I do my takes of the commercial, and then we'd all just sit there because the next thing that happens is the director gives feedback. And there were a couple of lengthy delays, and then we heard the director coming on and saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was giving you feedback, and then I realized I was still on mute." So, there's a lot of technical difficulties that get in the way of the back and forth energy that we used to have. But we're all making it work. And like I said, it's easier on the schedule and less commuting, but so there are pluses and minuses.
I absolutely agree with you, especially when you said that you can always do auditions at home rather than going place to place for May auditions, because, come on, that's a bit tiresome, even for me.
It's true. It's, I don't miss the commuting around. I miss the hanging out with people.
Relatable. Friends are great to have, especially if they've got the same talents as we actors ourselves.
Well, see, this is an interesting point, that a lot of my friends, my closest friends, are people who were always at the same auditions as me because we're the same type. So we were always up against each other. But the voiceover world is a pretty unique social ecosystem. We are not cutthroat at all. I used to go to musical theater auditions, and especially the dance calls. Oh my gosh, you'd go into a dance call and there's 100 girls sitting in the room, and they're all kind of like looking at each other like, is she better than me? Is she better than me? And that gets exhausting. So voiceover, here's an important thing for anyone to think of when they are approaching voiceover. They're casting you. They're not casting perfection. They're not, the reason they bring in so many of us is they have a general idea of, okay, we want 30 something female, sounds like a mom, kind of cheerful because we're selling Cheerios or something. But within that, there's so much variation. So each and every one of us who auditions brings something different to the read. We bring our own little spark. We bring our own little twist. We bring our own little personality. And that ultimately is what gets you cast. They're not casting a perfect voice. They are casting, oh, I related to that. So when I'm up against my friends, it's never a direct competition. I am never, ever competing directly against my friends. I am competing against what they have in their heads. What the creatives have in their heads. And I mean, you could say that for something like Silent Hill too. How the heck did I get chosen for Silent Hill? I'm not a known voiceover. I'm not a known video game person. I did the Silent Hill audition through a casting website called Voice123 on a total lark. It was not something that I considered my thing. And I thought, hey, I see this on here today. I have time. Let me just send a read just for fun, because it's a little different from what I normally do. And then 6 months later, I'm getting called in to read for the director in person. And then, it was like 9 months after that we did the callback where we learned we were cast. I mean, video game casting takes ages. And so it wasn't even that I was doing that audition saying, I am getting this role. It was just like, oh, let me just have some fun with it, do my thing. And for whatever reason, they liked it. And for whatever reason, the personality that I brought to it was what they decided Anne needed to have. So that's what you have to keep in mind, is that we can't read creatives' minds. We can't be in the director's mind. We can't be in the writer's mind. All we can do is show up and say, hey, here's my version of this. And then leave it at that and walk away for the next one. Because I'll tell you, again, I said, those of you who are in your early part of your voiceover career, if you're not getting a heck of a lot of stuff right now, be patient. The rejection rate is, ultimately, you can't think of your job as being to be in the booth. The goal is to be in the booth. Our job is to audition. I mean, that's the job of any actor. The job is to audition, because 90 to 95% of the time, you're not booking the job. Someone else is going to book the job. How many professions have it like a 95% rejection rate? You have to be okay with that. You have to think, oh, cool. I have the chance to get in my booth and audition for a Disney project today. Oh my gosh, how cool is that? I'm not going to book it, but I get to audition for it. And that's awesome. So if you can approach all of your auditions with that attitude, it's like, cool, look what I get to read for today. This is awesome. Because that's your job. Your job is to audition for anything you can, send it out into the world, and then let it do whatever it does. 95% of the time, it's just going to say goodbye. But then there's the 5% of the time where 6 months after you submit something on Voice 123, you're getting a call from the producers of Silent Hill saying, come in and read for us. So you've got to just do your thing. Don't worry about the percentages. Don't worry about whatever anyone else is doing. Just be happy to be in the booth recording your audition. Have fun with it. Send it off. And it is what it is.
Absolutely, especially that in most live action adaptations and projects, what normally matters is your looks more than your voice. It's mostly like the image of yourself, which is very, I don't know the right word for it, but it's like that's what matters nowadays, especially like talent shows like X Factor, American Idol. It's like, even if you're a good singer, we don't have like apparently the star quality. What's that about? You've got a good voice, but not the idol figure, which is really disrespectful.
And I am very frustrated with the industry overall about that. I've seen a little bit of improvement, not in the talent competition arena, but in overall general casting, especially in commercials here in the United States, which is primarily what I've done on camera, is commercials. Especially since the pandemic, there has been a much greater acceptance of people who are not super thin and people who look like a real person rather than a model. You know, one of the reasons I moved to New York and not LA, apart from the fact that I was all like musical theater all the time, was I've never been a size 2. You know, I've never been and I'm not willing to starve myself to get that. I like food. Thank you very much. I like cooking. I like eating it. And so I'm not somebody who has ever been willing to put my body through what, frankly, you have to put your body through to have a massive film career. And voiceover doesn't matter what you look like. You can look like absolutely anything. It only matters, what do you believably sound like? Interestingly, for some reason, some people, this ends up being like a massive mismatch between their look and what they get cast for. You know, like your vocal age range and your physical age range might be completely different things. You know, I know 40-something, 50-something women who get cast as teenagers or 20-somethings because that's what they sound like. They'd never get that on camera, but in voiceover, whatever, doesn't matter. So voiceover is so much more a happy home for people who don't want to put their bodies through all that. Even though we are hopefully going to be seeing more of a trend towards an acceptance of people who are not classically perfect, because oh my god, that's boring. I always say perfect is boring. I don't want to hear something perfect. I don't want to watch an entire cast of people looking perfect. I want to see people. I want to see personality. I want to see interesting choices. I want to see unexpected line readings. That's what I want to see.
I totally agree, and that's why most of the time it's better to be a voice actor than a big, top-notch Hollywood actor, in my opinion.
You know what? I would never want to be famous, honestly. It seems awful to me. I know a lot of people want to be famous, but can you imagine walking down the street and everyone is like looking at you and you're being followed by photographers? That seems terrible. I enjoy the fact that I'm a full-time working actor, and nobody knows who I am except you found me.
Apart from your fans as well.
Yes.
And that's
So it's definitely more the lifestyle I want.
it's much healthier that way, that your fans are like the one who values you than people from the paparazzi industry, like following you around and trying to give you false information, either about yourself or just about the company in general, which is very dark and twisted, especially because that's the paparazzi world.
You do see that a lot. I mean, how many times have we seen celebrity stories come up where it really seems like they're trying to manufacture something, like they're trying to manufacture some sort of dispute between two famous people who probably totally love each other in real life, but media loves drama. So yeah, they're making stuff up and trying to manufacture a story. I don't want to be a part of that.
Absolutely not. And that's been happening for years, especially with Judy Garland and Shirley Temple in the 30s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that you look at the treatment of those are two interesting examples because they were kids, and kids in particular because they don't have as much autonomy and decision making ability. There's such an awful history of kids being taken advantage of, and Judy Garland, they gave her diet pills, and then she was addicted to drugs for the rest of her life because they thought she wasn't thin enough. Her talent wasn't enough for them. It's awful. And the things that happened to Shirley Temple with her money. There are many more protections around child actors now, thank goodness. But yes, the history of media or studios or movie studios building a fake life story around people has always been here.
It's just sad, even from this current year to years before that. It's just like we watch movies, we love them, and then we'll keep going to our parents, Mom, Dad, I want to be an actor, I want to be a dancer, I want to be an action star, I want to be a superhero. But the minute you get into that studio and you start your career as an actor, it might start out well, but further on, all I want to say is be ready.
Again, it's very few people successfully navigate that. And bravo to people who do. And it's largely the people who leave Hollywood. For instance, like Matt Damon and his wife, they live here in New York. And they decided to do that so they could have a more normal life than Los Angeles. And I love one of the things I love about New York, honestly, is that when you do see someone famous walking down the street, I don't know how it is in England because I'd freak out if I saw a lot of the UK stars, but here you see somebody, you see Peter Dinklage or Danny DeVito or somebody very famous just walking down the street and everyone's like, hey, and leaving them alone apart from that.
I'm not sure about England being like that. I think stage actors, yeah, but with Hollywood actors like Robert Pattinson and Christian Bale, I bet they'll be followed by a lot of fans as well.
Yeah, well, they're all, yeah, oh boy, yeah, that's the Robert Pattinson thing. It also, I think, depends on what you get famous for and what the fan base for that particular thing, how that fan base behaves. Because I can see that, for Robert Pattinson being thrust into international stardom by Twilight, that's a particular fandom that is very enthusiastic about putting their stories onto the character and wanting to be part of that story. So that could have something to do with it as well.
Mm-hmm. Especially they play Batman as well.
Yes, yeah, and he's but then you see people like him trying to make deliberate choices. Yes, massive Batman movies, but he's also tried to make some smaller, more quirky movies so that he's not just pigeonholed as that. And I think that's a very deliberate career choice that I respect.
I absolutely agree. And I think we should all say best of luck to Robert Pattinson and to his future as Batman and many of his careers.
Yeah, and if you see him on the street, let him go about his business.
Of course.
Yeah.
He might be in movies, but he's a person just like everyone else.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. Anyone who gets a little bit of notoriety or a little bit of fame, people do have a tendency to impose their own opinion of the character onto the actor. And that there has to be an understanding that the actor is never the character. The actor is always their own person, who oftentimes is nothing at all like the character.
I agree with that as well, especially with your character from Silent Hill and yourself.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So at the callback, I did, which scene were we doing we were doing like one of the first scenes after the bus crash when Anne stops Murphy and leading up to Anne falling off the cliff. And we did the scene and the director said, "You sound too happy. Can you tone it back a little bit, get more angry?" And I was like, I'll try. And we did a few more takes and then they had us come out of the booth and the director looked at me and said, "You just like to smile, don't you?" Like, "Oh, yeah." So at that point, I thought I totally didn't have the part. I was like, oh man, too happy. Way too happy to play a depressed prison guard. Oh, well, bye.
But lucky enough, you stayed on.
Well, they for whatever reason, despite the fact that I was way too happy as a normal person to play Anne, they decided that I was going to be Anne. They trusted me, and they trusted that I would be able to find it when we did the recording.
I'm really glad they kept you on. Now, since we're talking about Anne and Silent Hill now, which I'm very excited to talk about. So, what was the producer like? I believe his name is Tom Hewlett.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, chain of command in voiceover recordings is a little bit tricky because you're not, in fact, usually working with the top production people. You're working with a few layers in between. So most of my interactions were with the director and not with the producer. So I don't have any stories about working directly with the producer because he wasn't the one who was in charge of communicating with the actors. So sorry that I probably disappointed you on that. But that's just the way it tends to work, unless you're a superstar. And, Tom Cruise is talking to all the producers because he also is a producer. But someone more of just a standard working actor, you do have to just work within the chain of command and communication. And so if you're told, okay, you're primarily interacting with the director, that's who you talk to.
Of course. And also, what was it like working with the voice of Murphy Pendleton, the protagonist of the game?
Yeah, so that was a treat. So, kind of like me, David came from a primarily theater background, and he was very grounded. And speaking of people who are nothing like their character, if you saw him in person, you'd be like, wait, that's what the voice of Murphy, what he actually looks like? He's so unassuming and, good looking guy, obviously. But he was an absolute treat to work with, and I'm so glad we were in the booth together. He was very giving as an actor. For instance, the scene where Anne is falling off the cliff. We weren't just in the booth together, we were holding hands. He reached out across the booth to me, and we clasped arms. And so I was actually like pulling back and leaning back as we were saying those lines, which really let me have more tension and more desperation in my voice. And then the scream when Anne falls was him, we looked at each other like, okay, and he let go. And I fell backwards.
Did you literally fall backwards?
Oh, a controlled fall and all that. I was in charge. But we were, as much as we could, within the confines of the booth, and of course the restriction of you have to stay within a certain pickup range for the microphone. We were very much interacting, and that's I think probably why some of those scenes resonate with people, because it's not just lines being recorded in a void. It's lines being recorded very much in collaboration with the other person as a back and forth give and take of energy. And that's how those scenes were able to have the life that they do.
So you mentioned you were in the studio and you were holding hands with David. That's the name, the voice that plays Murphy. Did you both ever do a motion capture, like you had to wear these suits and you had to move around?
The technology was not quite there at that point. No. When we were recording, we got to see some of the previs, which is the very rough animation of some of the cutscenes. And then they did the final animation to our voices, but there was no motion capture for that. I don't actually know when motion capture technology became pretty standard for video games. But I've never had a chance to actually do it. Again, friends who live in Los Angeles have done quite a bit of motion capture, but most of that is happening. Again, you need very specific studios to actually do the motion capture. So yeah, they weren't videotaping us at all. So all of that is just our voices, and then the animators took it from there.
Okay. And when you did that, one of my favorite scenes in the game where Anne and Murphy meet at the prison near the end of the game, and she said to Murphy, I saw a monster, I saw you. How did that feel, expressing Anne's anger and basically telling Murphy how she truly felt with her father and how he was falsely accused of that?
That was a tough thing to tap into. We did the scenes in order. And we did it over just a couple of days of recording. So it felt a little bit more like the characters were building in a slightly more theatrical way. than if we'd recorded out of order. And so that scene was recorded towards the end of the day. So it helped that we'd been there all together for hours. We were a little tired. And so it was easier to access the world weariness. I approached it as, when you've been planning revenge for a really long time, and then you're finally there, face to face with the person. And she's been working on this for years. She has been making sure that she was at the right prison. She has been, compromising her morals to get to the place where she is the guard in charge of Murphy. But then what happens when you've spent years planning this, and then you're actually there face to face with the person? Is it anger? Is it relief? Is it exhaustion because you've been building up to this? So that scene is all of those put together. There's the deep, years-long built-up anger, thinking, this is the man who did this to my father. There's satisfaction. So I finally pulled this off. Here we are. I get to do this. But then there's also this weariness. Can you imagine pouring all your energy into revenge for years? That's gotta be exhausting. So it was the end of the recording day. We were in the booth together, and I just let everything drop. I decided I'm not gonna try to create something here. I'm gonna just see what comes out. And so I just took a breath and I started talking. And what is in the game is the only take that was ever recorded. We did one take. And, it felt good. Sometimes when you're recording, you're just like, oh yeah, this is feeling really good. And, but then you can't start thinking that, because then you're going to get awful instantly. So I was thinking, oh, this is feeling good. But then I was thinking, no, just let it, don't act it. Don't force it. Don't make it happen. Just say it. All the stuff we've recorded today, all the stuff that we've done so far, just drop it and just say the words and see what comes out. And it worked. And that's also the beautiful thing about microphones. You don't have to project a performance. You can just let stuff come out, and the microphone picks up the nuances and the subtext. So that's what happened. And excuse me, I have to cough. Apologies.
You okay?
Oh, I've had a cold the last week, but yeah. It's winter, colds happen.
Mm-hmm. And also, what was your favorite scene in Downpour?
It was that scene, for sure. Because that scene felt like like I was saying, the culmination of so many things. And it's really okay. I'm gonna say I have a favorite scene and a favorite 1A scene. Okay. So that scene felt amazing to record. That was so satisfying, just from an acting standpoint and from a storytelling standpoint. That was amazing. But I have to say, the other little bit I loved recording was is it ending C? It's the truth and justice ending?
Ending B.
Yeah, where Anne goes back to the prison to confront the guy who actually did kill her dad. And she's got a gun behind her back. And the last line is, we need to talk. And I loved bringing just that little swagger to that scene. That was fun. So the confrontation scene in the prison was the best, like, dramatic, I am now drained as an actor scene. And that ending was the most, like, evil fun.
And speaking of ending the Truth and Justice scene, if you have read the comic based on Downpour, which is more focused on Anne, called Anne's Story, that is actually the canon ending.
Oh, interesting. See, I haven't. Okay. Am I gonna alienate fans here by saying I am so scared? I'm such a scaredy cat. I don't do horror at all. So it's so ironic that I'm in this game because I tried playing this game and I mean, I pieced out early in the game because like this is too scary. I can't do this. So I haven't read the comics or a lot of the related material just because it's too creepy.
Of course, because it is a horror franchise after all. But what I really love about the comic of Anne's Story is that all that comic was originally for. I think I've said this before, but originally in Silent Hill Downpour, there was going to be two playthroughs. One playthrough you play as Murphy, and the second playthrough you play as Anne.
I wish
But
they'd done that. That would have been amazing. But I think at the point when we were recording, that was mentioned, but it was possibly going to be a DLC or something like that. And obviously never got made.
which is really disappointing because I think that would, like you said, that would have been amazing, especially if you get to understand like Anne's point of view, and especially like in scenes where Murphy was on the boat and Anne was stopping him.
Yeah.
Like you go, where did she come from? How did she got into the boat without him knowing? And
Yeah.
that's because in the comic, she actually swam in the water and got on the boat.
Ah.
And she didn't shoot him either. When he goes, you might as well shoot me. There was a lightning storm, and that's what knocked them both out from the boat, and that's how they both got into the prison.
That's very interesting. See, I always kind of figured maybe Anne was hiding in the boat or so shows what I know. Voice actors clearly not given the entire story, but or stories build up later after we've done the recording. I always found that boat scene interesting because essentially Murphy has completed his portion of the moral redemption at that point. I mean, depending on how you're playing the character. Silent Hill is letting him go. But then as soon as she's on the boat, that's when the storm starts coming back in because Silent Hill says, oh, nope, can't let you go. You're not done yet.
Exactly, and that's what I love about Silent Hill. You're only allowed to leave from your grief, your fears, when you know the truth as well. That's what I love about Silent Hill compared to other horror games. And if we ever get a remake of Silent Hill Downpour, because from what I heard a month ago, Konami has confirmed that there's going to be a new Silent Hill team that are from Japan. And they've even announced they're going to make more remakes of Silent Hill. So Silent Hill 2 is getting the remake first. The why Silent Hill 1's not getting the remake first, but the fans want what the fans want. And it's the popular game, the series as well, so I'll see how that goes. But when we do get a remake of Silent Hill Downpour, I really want the original concept of the two playthroughs where you play as Murphy and Anne.
That would be wonderful, I think, for a storytelling, because there are many bits and pieces of her story that obviously could be fleshed out. And there were a lot of scenes. You know, there's a scene where Murphy finds her and she's like huddled, and she's been through stuff, and we don't have that backstory. I had to make up in my mind what she'd just seen, what Silent Hill was showing her, I think it would be very interesting to see her get to live that whole story. More of an understanding of all that. But anyway, we'll see. I sure haven't heard anything. So voice actors are often the last to know. That's the crazy secret about being a voice actor is you're brought in at a very specific point in the process. You do your thing, and then you are sent on your way. And also the overall process is so long. I already mentioned it was more than a year between the initial audition and the final casting. And then the recording we did, when everyone was saying last year, oh, it's the 10-year anniversary of Silent Hill, I was thinking, that doesn't feel right. What, 10 years? It feels like longer than that. Oh, right, because we started recording in 2009.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was recording for that game happening at least 18 months, if not longer, before the game actually hit stores. So there's the bits and pieces of production happen at their own paces.
Has any fans of Silent Hill ever approached you online or in person of your performance in Silent Hill?
Online a few times, yeah. I did an interview last year with a company for the 10-year anniversary. Excuse me. And I've had a couple other people find me, but not a tremendous amount. I mean, I'm not particularly out there on social media posting all the time. So, and I have never been invited to a convention or anything. So, honestly, when people did start finding me last year for the 10-year anniversary of the release, and I started hearing people saying Anne Cunningham was an important character to them, I had no idea. I recorded that. The game came out. It wasn't a massive hit when it came out. So I just assumed, oh, okay, well, it did its thing, bye. And meanwhile, I've spent the last 10 years doing audiobooks and commercials and corporate stuff and having a massive career in everything but that. And so when I found out that that game was resonating and that character were resonating with people, I was like, really? Me? Huh. I had no idea. I genuinely had no idea. So thank you, everybody. That's awesome. I'm glad you appreciated it. I was over here doing my own career, having no idea about any of that.
And I'm pretty sure all fans of Silent Hill really admire and are thankful for your performance, giving us the role of Anne Marie Cunningham.
Well, thank you to everybody. It was a wonderful and unique experience recording. I would love to do more of it, but it's not something that I've really put myself out there for a lot.
Let's see what the future holds, eh?
We'll see what the future holds, but I kind of don't want to move to Los Angeles, so.
Oh, we could look forward to that.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, I'm glad it's satisfying as an actor to know that there is one performance from my career that is still resonating with people. That's a special gift. Not everybody gets that. So I'm glad that performance means something to people. I'm glad that 10 years on, people are still thinking about it. And I am very happy to talk about it. And I just thank everybody for playing the game and enjoying the performance.
So one more question of Silent Hill, and then we'll ask you some random questions to finish off.
Okay.
So the last Silent Hill question is, what is your favourite quote / line of Anne in the game?
I don't know that I have a favorite quote. I mean, I guess if I had to say one, it would be that truth and justice ending. Just like I said, my favorite line to say was, "We need to talk." I enjoyed saying that line. It was fun.
It was also a good way to end the game as well, in my opinion. Because the ending the forgiveness one, all she said was, "You better go." But it's weird because you would think that'll be the ending B ending, because in ending all the endings, you only get some certain types of endings where you for ending A you have to have a good resume. Basically, you don't kill a lot of enemies and you make good choices. But yet we have Anne saying that Murphy died in a bus crash and you better leave. There was no thank you or anything. But ending B, you get it from killing a lot of enemies and making bad choices, and yet you got that ending, which is confusing. And ending C and D, they don't matter because Anne dies, sadly.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, I think that fits with Silent Hill the best. The moral, Silent Hill is not about moral purity. It's about moral clarity, which are different things. So I think it actually makes sense that to get to the most satisfying resolution for yourself doesn't mean always making the most traditionally good choices. Sometimes you have to, there's so much gray area in the world. So if you are able to find peace with your existence and yourself within the gray areas, more good than bad for sure. I think that's kind of what Silent Hill is about.
Especially that there's one ending I forgot to mention. There's one called a reverse ending where Anne actually kills Murphy as the boogeyman, but the roles reverse. So she's the prisoner and he's the security guard, which is, I'm not sure if that's supposed to be an Easter egg or an actual ending because you don't get a trophy for it, but it is quite a unique thing to add compared to games we normally get.
Yeah, and I think that ending is brutal because Anne doesn't get the resolution, or she got the revenge she thought she wanted, but at what cost? And because it was the wrong revenge.
The wrong person as well.
Yeah, right. So she didn't come to peace with it. So she's tormented forever because she went about it the wrong way, and she wasn't able to find that closure, the correct closure for herself. So, I mean, I think that is an important ending to have in there.
Of course. Actually, I just thought of a bigger question now. Is that if Silent Hill Downpour ever got a movie like Silent Hill 1 and 2 or a TV series, who do you picture portraying Anne in the live action adaptation?
Ooh. That's a great question. Gosh, I wasn't prepared for that. I'm going to my mental casting database. Who would it be? Oh my gosh, I am not sure. I don't have an answer for you on that.
It's a hard question to think of.
It's a very hard question. I mean, the thing is, like I said before, when I'm thinking about casting, I'd want people who are making unexpected choices. So I wouldn't necessarily want to cast somebody who would give a performance anywhere near the performance I gave. I'd want to see what somebody else brought to the character. What ideas do they have for the character? and they might be completely different from the ideas I had when we were recording the original. So, whew. I mean, I'd almost say I'd kind of want to see somebody that we don't know about yet. Somebody that we don't have any preconceived ideas of what their performance might be, because I want to see something surprising.
That's actually a really good point, because I was actually thinking of an actor who's been in a movie who suffers from depression, and it's also a very disturbing, scary movie, and that is Florence Pugh from Midsummer.
She's very good. Yes.
And
She does make fascinating choices. Yes.
I think because of that movie and from that performance alone, I think she has like the potential, but portraying as a very strict, very aggressive, I may say, cop like Anne is, especially that she's in Black Widow as well.
I loved her in Black Widow. Yeah, I think she makes very interesting choices for sure. That's a good choice.
Thank you. So, my random questions now to finish it off is that if you could be in any series, like a movie, game, TV series, what series would that be you like to be in and why?
Okay, this is a really geeky answer. So, one of the things that first got my attention to voiceover, and this is also telling you how old I am, I remember being in my early teens when Star Trek Next Generation came out.
Oh, wow.
And you know what fascinated me? I mean, the whole thing. I love Star Trek. Was the computer voice. And ironically, I now am pretty good at doing computer voices. I very, very much would like to be the voice of a ship's computer on Star Trek.
Well, I hope you get to. Because truth is,
Just putting that out there into the universe. That I would love to do that.
Well, if you're ever in Star Trek, I will watch it because I can't really get into Star Trek because I haven't watched it properly. I have some bits, but if you ever get to do the voice of the ship, I will definitely watch it for you because
I appreciate that. Anyway, so yes, that's what I would like to do.
Awesome. And do you have any more projects coming at the moment for next year or the future?
Not in the video game world. I've got a bunch of audiobooks coming up. So I mean, you can always find me on Audible. I'm not sure if you can find me on UK Audio because UK and US Audible are different stores. But I've got a serial killer murder mystery series by a wonderful author named E.H. Vick that I did several books for this past year. And that was tremendous fun. And kind of in the Silent Hill vein, it's an FBI super profiler who is being there's a serial killer setting up challenges for her to solve. And over the course of a bunch of books, she encounters very inventive murder styles. So I had a lot of fun narrating those this past year. Anyway, yeah, that's most of what I've got coming up is audiobooks and other. Most of what I do, you're never going to hear because it's internal corporate training, and unless you happen to work for that particular company, it's not going to be in your ears. Sorry.
Well, luckily we've got VPN, so I'm pretty sure I can go to audiobook for US, which is quite lucky to have.
Not that I'm encouraging anyone to break the law.
Well, they shouldn't make the app in the first place.
Exactly. They shouldn't have these international. They should sell books to everybody.
Totally agree. But it is what it is, isn't it?
It is what it is. It's all about rights. Yeah. My husband actually works for Penguin Random House, and so he's he's given me all sorts of inside information about why books can be published here but not here, and who owns the rights in which country, and it's very complex. I'm glad I'm not on the contract side of things. I'm just on the doing it side of things.
Woo!
Yeah.
Voices I've heard. So this is the end of our interview, and I just want, and again, thank you so much, Kristin, for being such a great guest and telling me your experience in one of the most iconic fan favorite franchises of all time. And I wish you all the best of luck in the near future.
Thank you. And right back at you. Thank you so much for inviting me today. It was such a pleasure to chat with you. I hope you get many more interviews with exactly the people you want to interview in the future. You're a great host, a great interviewer. So best wishes to you and to all of the people watching. Thank you for enjoying Silent Hill. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you so much, Kristin, and hope we get to talk again in the future. Take care.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Bye.